Already. 2, 1. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, what is up? It has been a while. To be precise, it has been exactly a year. The only podcast that exists to serve one single purpose, and that is to be one time a year to say our top 10 things of the year. Got my brother James with me.
What's up?
For the first time in history, we have a 2 microphone setup that is probably going to be great. So with that, our first one is going to be music, and then we'll go into movies after that. The way we're gonna do this, I'll split it into parts on YouTube. I may make it one video, may make it two. It just kind of depends on how things go. But yeah, the way the music portion works, the movies portion is really easy. It's just straight us saying each our number 10 and number 10, and then so forth and so forth all the way to number 1. The way the music works is each of us says our number 10 album and number 10 song together, and then the other person says their number 10 album and song, and then it goes on and on and on until we both say our number 1s. So it's fairly simple in that regard. So you can keep up, and it's pretty easy. So yeah, basically that is that. So general, just overall first impressions of this year.
Personally, I thought this year was pretty solid on both sides of the spectrum. I thought we got some really good music. A lot of artists made my top 10 that haven't been there in the past, or that I haven't gotten to talk about in the past, at least. That's exciting. And yeah, I think metalcore in particular had a really good year this year. Probably one of the best years in recent memory.
I was gonna say, I felt like I did really good about doing variety this year. I feel like I listened to a lot of other artists, but metalcore still ended up dominating my list for music, at least. This was just one of the more solid years it had, and it's like the last 2 years have already been like you think of the past 2 years, last year, and then we had Era in 21. Like it's just been strength after strength after strength, and I don't know, it's just, but yeah, usually for number 10s, you always listen to more stuff than me. I kind of stick around in the metal genre for the most part. I do think I have a tiny bit of variety, but not very much, even though I listen to a lot of different stuff.
That's okay.
Nothing really stuck. And my number 10 usually never really, it's just like, usually my number 10 is like a 3.5 album that I'll just, say I liked. So here we go. This is our top 10 albums and songs of 2023. And I'll start off. My number 10 album is The Death We Seek by Currents. This is not really as good as their last album, I don't think.
No, I agree.
But it had some really good cuts, especially the title track, I think, is one of the better title tracks of this year. And as I am definitely not looking up the album to stall for time, I'm not talking to stall for time either, just to clarify that. Yeah, the opening The Death We Seek, So Alone, and then the ending song is a really impactful, emotional cut. Just a lot of, I think Currents is probably one of the more consistent metal artists recently. They kind of just stick with that hard metal, just the kind of stuff you're used to in the metal genre. So this album was a 3.5 for me, but overall, it had to get there somewhere because I just thought it was a very generally solid album. So that's my number 10 album. My number 10 song is an artist that I don't think has ever made my top 10 in any form or fashion. But this is Are We Even by Icy Stars. This song really grew on me from when we listened to it for the first time at that concert.
Yeah.
And it grew really quickly on me. Loved the electronics. I've always loved Icy Stars since Treehouse with their electronic usage, even back Murder Mitten and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think his voice has just gotten really better. Was really impressed with him in concert too. So I'm really glad Icy Stars is back. And their new album is really shaping up to be a great follow up to Treehouse, I think. So that's just my number 10s.
Okay. Yeah. So my number 10 is an artist you've probably never listened to, and I didn't listen to them until this year. And this is a genre that I don't think has ever made my top 10. But this album impressed me so much that I had to give it a spot. Well, no, I'm wrong. This genre has made my top 10 one other time. It's a country artist. Zach Bryan is his name. He's blown up. Well, I thought you'd heard of him, but I figured you hadn't listened to the album. But he was more considered a indie country artist, but now he's sort of the opposite because he got a number one hit on the Billboard Hot 100, which was sort of crazy. Like country dominated the Billboard this year big time. Anyway, I was really this album really surprised me because it plays the country a little more subtle, and it does different things with the genre that I really respected. I think it dips its toes into a lot of different types of country, and I found it to be a really emotive album in particular. It had a lot of deeper insights. And yeah, I just really appreciated all the genre shifting it did within country, and it has some rock elements in it as well too, which I'm always going to be a big fan of. I think Zach Bryan's voice is really unique, and his lyric writing is really good. He does a good job playing sort of the rough around the edges type of persona, and I'll be talking about a song later where he really perfects that. But there's a lot of great cuts on here, and he gives a lot of. It's sort of cool because he's now a big artist. He gives a lot of indie country artists spotlight on here that otherwise would not be exposed, and a lot of them got exposure because of him. So that was a pretty cool thing that happened. But yeah, that's my number 10 album. Then my number 10 song. Now I did say that there's a lot of artists who it's their first time on here, but for this artist, it is not their first time on here. At number 10 is the song Wireless by the band Within Temptation. This is a symphonic metal band. I'm a huge fan of them, have been for quite a few years now. I think they are one of the best within their genre. They came back with a new album this year. Now, their album didn't quite make my top 10, but it was close. I do think that Within Temptation is one of the best in their genre. And I think they came back really strong with this track. It was a return to form for them. It's probably one of their more intense songs. There's even sort of a breakdown in it, which sort of surprised me because they've not really done anything like that. It's also one of their more politically hard-hitting songs. It talks about war, and it's pretty critical of governments that endorse war. It talks about how they only care about people as much as they can give them political points in winning a war, but they don't care about the trauma that they go through when they get back from fighting, or the deaths. Like, it's a pretty damning song in that regard, but I think it's a very relevant song for now. And yeah, I mean, everything about it I really like. Sharon's vocals are great as always. Guitar work is great, and the orchestration is awesome. It's just sort of a classic Within Temptation song, and yeah, it was a surefire winner for me because it did everything I liked about the band.
Okay, good stuff. My number 9 album is one that I didn't really gel with at first, but as I listened to it more, it went over. It really grew on my list as time went on. That's Periphery 5. Gent is not a genre, so aptly named. Periphery's always been one of my favorite bands. The genre they sort of live in, that sort of progressive rock has slowly but surely become probably my favorite genre to listen to. I really love long songs that take their time and build up and stuff like that. This band is probably one of the best ones. Now, I will say this is comparably one of their weaker albums overall. This is probably another 3.5, a little bit of a stronger 3.5, obviously. But but this album has some really great cuts. The opening song, Wildfire, I know you really like that one too.
Mhm.
Probably one of their best songs. Followed up closely by Atropos, which is a really nice, chill, sort of just reminds me a little bit of their third album, a lot of the cuts from that one. Especially like, Marigold gives Marigold vibes. Wax Wings feels like a mixture of everything they do best with like soaring choruses, great breakdowns, drum work, everything across the board pretty much consistent. My favorite song from the album, Dying Star. This is weird because it usually happens the other way, but no singular song from this album made my top 10, but the album did, because there wasn't really one song that I particularly loved from this album, but I think the album played out as a whole really well. Obviously, an hour and 10 minutes of 9 songs. Some of the songs do drag on a little bit, overstay their welcome, but overall, I think this was a really solid cut of an album. I think Periphery has really benefited from Golden Pennant, and I think this was a really solid cut from them. My number 9 song is from a band that will appear fairly soon. It is Majesty by Barry Tomorrow. I really only found this band this year and found out that they have a ridiculous discography. They've been going for like something like 20 years or something like that. This song is really, really powerful. It has a really nice chorus, great vocals, has a very like sort of majestic. I mean, don't take this ironically because I didn't mean it, but it has a very majestic feel to it. Has a really, really nice chorus, and it's just kind of one of those songs that you just like listen to for the vibe of it, for the feeling. It gives you like a really powerful, like emotional feeling, and this song was one of the early ones of the year that really stuck out to me. It pretty much stayed in my top 10 the whole time of the year.
Okay. At number 9 is one of the biggest rock bands out there. This album got hyped up to no end because a lot of people weren't sure when or if this band was going to come back. But that is Paramore's album, This Is Why. I was really impressed by this album. Paramore has become one of my favorite bands in the past couple of years. I think I sort of underappreciated them when I was younger, and didn't appreciate why so many people liked them. I mean, the main driving force is Hayley Williams' vocals. A lot of people consider her to be one of the best rock vocalists of all time. I used to think that was a little bit of an overhyped statement, but now I sort of agree. I really like her voice. Get why songs like Misery Business and things like that are so big these days. They were game changers in their genre for the late 2000s and early 2010s, and they're sort of proving that again later in their career with this album. They did a little bit of a genre shift, which is something they always do. You can no longer call them a punk rock band anymore. They haven't been that for a long time. But this album has a lot more experimental stuff than you might expect from them. It's more of a post-rock album. And I really like it for that reason. I like how sort of strange it gets, and I think it has a lot of really mature themes in it. I think the band is looking a lot more inward and being more introspective, and you can see them acknowledging a lot of their hardships as a band, because if you don't know Paramore's history, they have a lot of drama, a lot of band shifts. This is the first time with 2 consecutive albums in a row where the band has actually stayed the same, but there's been so much stuff that's happened behind the scenes with them. And this album is sort of an interesting reflection on that in many ways. It sort of talks about the pandemic a little bit too. But I really like what this album does. I think there's a lot of creative cuts here. This Is Why, the lead single, was super catchy and a very addicting song. And then you've got interesting ones like Running Out of Time, that is sort of bizarre for them and goes in directions you're not expecting. And the closer, Thick Skull, is just a really powerful sort of ballad that ends things off on a really cool note, and really leaves you feeling the impact of this album, in my opinion. And I think there's just a lot of good stuff in this album. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's very efficiently done, and I think it does a lot with the genre, a lot of creative stuff. So I really appreciated this album this year and back to it quite a bit. My number 9 song is an artist that has not been in my top 10 and that I didn't really even get into until this year. She's sort of a critical darling. Her name is Jessie Ware. She has a very storied music history based on my research that I've done of her, and I'm going to be checking out her past albums after um, hearing what she put out this year. But this song is called Begin Again. Um, it really plays into a lot of the 80s pop nostalgia that we're seeing right now. Um, I think the 80s nostalgia, pop nostalgia, is getting maybe a little bit tired, like lots of artists are doing it, and there's only a couple who are doing it right, but I think that she is one of them. I think maybe what helps her is that her sound is, I guess I'd describe it as a little more elegant. It's maybe something more refined sounding than you'd hear out of this genre, and I really think it's good. I think her voice is great. She really works again this style. It actually feels like it's out of the 80s. It actually feels sort of vintage, like um it actually knows what it's doing with the genre, which is really cool. It also is pretty ambitious for a pop song. It goes like 5.5 minutes, which is rather long for a pop cut. And it has some pretty cool shifts in it. It even has sort of an epic swell at the end that I really like. And I think it's sort of cool that it's just sort of a commentary on her journey and how even she's sort of talking about how even as she's gotten older that she still wants to try new things and stuff like that. And I think it's a really cool journey to go on. And yeah, I think it's my favorite pop song of the year. I've gained a lot more respect for pop over the years. Whereas I used to view it as not a very interesting genre, but I think you can actually do interesting things in it if you try, and it's clear who is trying versus who isn't, and I think this artist is one who is. So yeah, I really enjoyed this song.
All right. Number 8. Everything from here is a 4 or above. Just referring to the ridiculous quality of music this year. Number 8 is 4s. So my number 8 is from a storied metal band that pretty much needs no introduction. This is Mother by Veil of Maya. Listen, I listened to this album and it has been on non-stop repeat since the day I listened to it. If you just want a band that's just going to slap you in the face with non-stop riffs, breakdowns, insane unclean vocals, and this time around they went a little bit more experimental, which I really liked. Some of their past albums they would do a lot of unclean vocals, which for some people really liked it. For me, I used to like that, but for me now it gets a little bit tiresome after a while. This album though it just slaps. It just goes straight from the get-go. Tokyo Chainsaw, just a brutal massacre song, which again, no irony, but and then they get into some unclean vocals, which Veil of Maya really hasn't done a lot of in the past, but I really like his unclean vocals. Some really nice electronic style tracks, Red Fur, Disco Kill Party, and then some of the later songs get into just some of the very basic metalcore stuff that they're known for. I haven't listened to a lot of this band's past discography, but after this album just really was like, it was a real refresher for like just pure classic metal with a little hint of electronic. And electronic metal is something, and electronic rock and electronic in general is a genre I've really come to appreciate recently. And I love the way they incorporated it here with a lot of their songs. Speaking of electronic, my number 8 song is Dante by Northlane. Listen, Northlane is just something else. This band, they changed lead artists with their album Alien. Alien is still, no one can argue with me on this, that it is still one of the best metal albums that I think I've ever listened to. And they've obviously progressed their sound. Obsidian was a really interesting evolution of their sound. And this song just takes that one step further. Pretty much no unclean vocals, which more and more, I don't really care if there's no unclean vocals. I've started to really appreciate more chill, laid back songs. And this song just takes their electronic sound that they've been experimenting with and puts it into full force. And if their next album is pretty much all like this song, I will be 100% down for it because I think his clean vocals are just so good, and he's gotten just so much better. This song is it's a very self-reflective song. I've got the lyrics pulled up here. I just really like some of the lyrics. Just a self-reflection on love and what loving can do. The things we love just hurt us in the end. Pretty hurtful stuff, but real stuff too. And overall, just a really nice electronics, really nice vocals. Like I said, he just hits some of these notes that you're just surprised every time, but it's just so impactful the way this song just progresses. And if their album releases next year, I can easily see an album of the year contender already from an album that has this level of quality already, potentially.
I love the ending minute of that song where it just sort of goes into this beautiful electronic atmosphere.
Yeah.
So good. I'm so excited for their new album and what they're gonna do. They're so good. My number 8, I just said I was going to talk about this artist, but it's Jessie Ware with her album That Feels Good. Easily my favorite pop album of the year. And I mean, the things I said about her song just a bit ago are essentially my feelings about this album. I think, like I said, it's a very just sort of beautiful sounding pop album. I think it's very refined, but it doesn't take itself too seriously at the same time. It likes to cut loose a lot of times. It really plays a lot more upbeat on this album throughout, and I think it does a good job at having a really fun time. And there's just so many fun cuts on here. I really like other highlights for me are like the song Free Yourself, which feels like a very freeing song and it's going to appeal to a lot of people. I also really like Pearls. I think it just has a really fun beat to it. The title track is great. It's short and sweet, and to the point. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this album because my feelings about it are pretty simple at the core. I think it's just a fun album that I had a really good time with, and I'm just really impressed with what it accomplished in a time when 80s pop is a little bit oversaturated, and it actually does something pretty innovative within the genre. At number 8, this band did not make number 8 song. Sorry, this band didn't make my top 10 albums, but this. And I have checked out this band before, but I feel like they didn't really click for me until I heard entirely, I will say. I always respected this band, but they didn't click for me entirely until I heard this song, and that is Abandon Us by Barry Tomorrow.
Good choice.
When I heard this song, I was sort of immediately sold with what it was doing. It's sort of the definition of back to the basics metalcore, in my opinion. It's not really doing anything to reinvent the wheel, but I actually think that's okay in this case. I think if back to the basics metalcore is done right, it can be a great time in the genre. And Barry Tomorrow have a very, as Joseph was saying, very storied history. They've been around for a while, so they know what they're doing. And I think I haven't appreciated that about them in the past, is that they're veterans within the genre, and they have really helped build and inspire a lot of metalcore bands today. Like, without them, some of the metalcore genre would not be where it is right now, in my opinion. And I think we should acknowledge that. But, I mean, I really just was sold on this song immediately when the guitar riff came in, and I think the drumming in this song in particular is excellent, very energetic, and Danny Winterbates' screams in this, something about them I really love in this song.
He has a lot of. I think he just has a lot of fun with the unclean vocals, especially when he goes like, "How could they do that?" To us?
Yes,
it's just like a lot of the comments I saw in that song, and what I feel is like, it just feels like a song they had a lot of fun with.
Yeah, and I love how he just sort of he almost sort of rap screams the vocals after that. How did they do that to us? So it really creates this nice groove within the screams. Like, I don't usually consider screams to have like a groove to them like that. So it was really unique in that regard. Also, the music video for that song is incredible. One of my favorite music videos of the year. And they had a new clean vocalist for this. I really like the old clean vocalist, and a lot of people thought he was a very iconic identity to the band, which I agree. But I'm going to be honest, I like the new clean vocalist a little better.
I do too, personally.
I think his cleans are excellent. And I mean, this is one of my top favorite choruses of the year, I gotta say. It is so catchy.
Yeah.
This was one of my top played songs on Spotify, and that's for a good reason. I just kept coming back to it for the chorus alone. And I absolutely love the breakdown in this. I mean, it's sort of, once again, it's not reinventing the wheel, but it's so well executed, and it works. It's just sort of a perfectly constructed classic metalcore song.
Well, it's fortunate that you mentioned the album not hitting your top 10, because it certainly, in fact, hit my top 10. My number 7 album is Seventh Son by Bury Tomorrow. This album, pretty much since I started it, has once again been a non-stop spin for me the entire year. This is just a genuine, high-quality metal album with pretty much every type of cut you can imagine. It starts off with the title track, which sort of feels like an anthem, sort of just setting the stage. Then James talked pretty much every hitting point that I was going to talk about Abandon Us. Begin Again is a really gorgeous Queen song with some unqueen split in there. Just a really, really gorgeous song. Bolt Cutter is just one of those classic.
I like that one.
I think I've said this a lot of times, but I'm really starting to like the metal style where they start with queens, then go into unqueens, so on and so forth. I think that's a really fun style. Obviously Majesty, I already talked about that song. Heretic with the lead singer of While She Sleeps. That song is just a slapping banger, and the music video is so fun.
They chose him for the right song,
Yeah.
the While She Sleeps vocalist.
And then Recovery is a really nice soft song. Care, same thing, and then it ends with just a slap in the face with Carcass King.
I love that one too. One of my top favorites.
So overall, this album, like James said, iterated on everything that I was pretty much going to say. This is a very by-the-books metal album. But these guys are just... I was really impressed. I haven't listened to their past discography, really. I do plan to after this album. But overall, this was just a genuine fun time. Like, these guys have been around for so long, they're starting to have fun, and it really shows in the quality of this album. Number 7. My number 7 song is from a band that I wasn't even creating content when this band existed. And, when I found this band versus when they were actually active. But now they are back. This is Red by Woe Is Me. Their album, I don't know why I forgot the name of their album.
Numbers? Is that the one you're
Numbers.
thinking of?
Why did I forget the name of their album? Numbers is potentially like within my top 10, 15, probably top 15 metal albums of all time. But this one finds Hans is the new Queen vocalist who was there in 2012, but he's back. His Queens have gotten so much better since their album Genesis. Genesis was a huge disappointment.
Oh yeah, that's an understatement.
After Numbers, but I guess everything is kind of a disappointment after Numbers. But this song just feels like a really, I don't know, it's like a cozy song. It just brings you back to those 2012, 2013 vibes when bands were just kind of they just had this structure and style, and this song is very structured. And the unqueen vocalist is Michael Bond from Issues. His screams sound really impressive. I watched a performance of this live. He sounds just as good live, in my opinion. This song has a stupendously addicting chorus that if you listen to it once, you're probably not going to get it out of your head.
Absolutely.
And it's just one of those songs that's very structured, very to the point, and brings you back to those days. It's just kind of I don't know, they say nostalgia sells, and I don't know, whatever Woe Is Me is doing, they are certainly going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay, at number 7, this is a band that has made my top 10 before, back in 2020. They are back this year, and that is the progressive rock band Haken with their album Fauna. You might remember yeah, I really liked Virus back in 2020, which was a sort of relevant album title to that year. I don't think they did that on purpose, but it was just sort of uncanny, and a lot of its themes were around like metaphorical viruses infecting humanity. It was a really good album. I really liked what it did, but I like Fauna better. Um, as much as I really like the sort of very straightforward, hard hitting progressive rock that they did on Virus, I really like the more. Fauna is a more beautiful sounding progressive rock album, and they are a lot more loose with what they do with the genre. They have a lot of more longer songs on here. There's one song on here that is like 12 minutes long that is so interesting to listen to.
Tool was laughing.
Well, but the interesting thing about this album is that every song is surrounding a different type of animal, and each of them is talking about the human condition through the ideas of that animal. Like there's a song called, which is my favorite on the album, and it would be an honorable mention song, called Sempiternal Beings, which is about like the lifespan of a jellyfish, but it's using that to talk about like the mortality of humans and how we have a hard time accepting that our time is short and that we don't have as much time as we think. And the song does just, it's really cool how it explores it, and musically the song just impresses me to no end with all the things it does in its runtime. It stays consistently engaging. There's just so many cool songs on here. There's one that talks about like the Elephant Man, the circus, the one that was considered a circus freak back in the day, but sort of talking about it as an obvious commentary about how we are quick to condemn people who might look different than us just because we're sort of frightened of the concept of that. There's a cool one called Nightingale, where the band sort of talks about how fans react to them changing their sound, and the band is one of the few that actually does this in the right way by talking about it in a much more compelling way than other bands might do. Yeah, I found this album to be so interesting, and I kept coming back to it because there's so many things to pay attention to in it. And I just think this band is really interesting in the progressive rock genre. I always really like what they come out with. Then my number 7 song, talked about this band already, but I'm talking about them again, and that is the song You First by Paramore. And this one, while I did say that most of Paramore's album was them experimenting, I will admit this one won me over because it sort of sounds like a classic Paramore song, in my opinion, although it still very much so fits the vibe of this album, in my opinion. It's just sort of an update on their sound, and I think it works. It also sort of has the classic Paramore trope of lyrics that are honest to an uncomfortable degree. Like this one's talking about the concept of karma coming back on all of us, that if you do something wrong, it's going to come back to bite you. But Hayley Williams essentially says that she hopes that it comes for someone else first rather than her. Like she'd prefer someone else to get their just desserts before she does, even though she knows that she's going to get karma as well. And the song sort of has fun with it. Like even in the bridge, she admits that she's being petty by saying this, but she's like, yeah, I am petty, but also, yeah, I do want karma to come for other people before it comes for me, because she doesn't want to face what is inevitable. So this is just sort of representative of Paramore's maturity, in my opinion, is that they're being more self-reflective and they're being more honest about their flaws. And I just really appreciate that coming through in the lyrics and everything like that. I think it just has a really fun guitar riff. Hayley's vocals are excellent in this one. The band is just firing on all cylinders. And yeah, this one, it came out early in the year, but I kept listening to it, so it was obvious to me it was going to be in my top 10.
All right, getting into the number 6. I'm not stalling for time to look up lyrics for a song. That is not what's going on. So, my number 6 album. This is sort of where my this is the one album I would say that I listened to, that I experimented with, that actually hit into my top 10. This is The Other One by Baby Metal.
Okay.
This is a surprise for me, even. And this is a Japanese I wouldn't call them metal. They're hard rock, definitely.
Have metal elements, though.
Metal elements for sure. I wish I could talk about the lyricism, but it's all spoken in Japanese. But I think they have some really, really strong cuts on here. The opening song, Metal Kingdom, has been pretty much on my listening radar for pretty much the entire year. I really love the way that song, the riffs in that song. They have some really fun, interesting songs like Maya. Time Wave is a very wacky, bizarre song. A song like Monochrome, which has a really gorgeous chorus, mostly spoken in English, which I thought was really impressive considering these girls do not speak English, but they're definitely getting better at it, and this song was pretty impressive. Overall, I really love this album for the instrumentation. I wish I could understand the lyrics. I could probably look them up if I chose to, but this was overall a really strong hard rock metal album. This band has really matured a lot. They used to be kind of a meme, but I think they're starting to get taken a lot more seriously and like actually taking their music seriously too. And this definitely interested to see what this band does in the future. My number 6 song comes from a band I talked about a little bit ago. This is Mother Part 4 by Veil of Maya. Since I've been listening to this song, again, I'd say this is probably one of my top 3 played songs of the year, probably. It's this weird song that's like, the lyrics are basically talking about going through space. The album is questionably, possibly a story, but nobody really thinks that. But it kind of is. It has this really nice beginning synth riff that's like really addicting, and then it just goes straight into hard metal, and it has a really nice chorus too. Overall, this song just kind of hits on all cylinders: the clean vocals, the unqueen vocals. And this really nice, it definitely gives you the vibe of sort of going through space and stuff. And really fun song, really addicting, very, very repetitive. Repetitive in a good way, like you want to play it over and over again type vibe. So, yeah.
All right. At number 6 is a very interesting rap album. This album is insane. It's by this artist called JPEG Mafia, and it's a collaboration with another artist called Danny Brown, and the album title is Scaring the Hose. It's a weird album title. I'll be honest, I don't understand everything this album is doing because it's pretty layered, and I'm not exactly sure why it's titled that, but I really liked the album. I thought it was pretty awesome. It does a lot of really innovative things in the genre, in my opinion. I think it has some really cool ideas, and it's one of those albums where I first listened to it, when I finished it, I was so confused. Didn't understand what I had listened to, but the more I came back to it, the more I got into its weird vibe, and I really appreciated what it was going for. There's a really cool song on here called Kingdom Hearts Key that's really, I just love the sound of it. It's one of my favorite songs of the year. Didn't make my top 10, but it has a really cool song sample in it that I really liked. There's also one called Garbage Pail Kids, which is weirdly an allusion to like this card collection that came out way back when. There was also a horrible movie about it that like got panned on Rotten Tomatoes back in the day. But yeah, the album is so interesting, and I think both artists that collaborate do a really good job on it and create some really compelling ideas on this album. And yeah, it got really critically liked, and I just got curious about it because I saw a lot of music reviewers that I watch on YouTube talking about it. So I checked it out, and I really liked it. And yeah, it was one that stayed in my rotation because I was consistently intrigued by it. Then at number 6, this is a band that I have talked about before, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about them again. It is Jaded by Spirit Box.
Very good. Yes.
This, I think, I'm going to step out on a limb here and say that I think this is my favorite Spirit Box song, probably. It's a tough one because I still really like Secret Garden from Eternal Blue. I really like that one.
Eternal Blue, the goat.
Such a good album still, and I really liked Hysteria from their EP. That one was really good as well. But man, this one, I mean, I loved it from the first time I heard it. I think it is the most Spirit Box sounding song, if that makes any sense. Like, it incorporates all the elements we've come to know about Spirit Box, and in my opinion, it sort of perfects them. Like, a lot of people consider Circle With Me to be Spirit Box's best because it sort of has all the iconic elements of them. I think this one is like, it's sort of what I would have, a better version of Circle With Me, in my opinion. I mean, I really like the beginning guitar riff. It's great. The way they use electronics is really good here. Courtney, I as much as I like her screams, I love her cleans even more. And this song emphasizes on her cleans more, and she is just, man, her voice is beautiful in this song. Especially in the ending where she's just sort of showing off, but she sort of earned it. She's just a good vocalist, and I really love what she does with her voice. I think it's also lyrically one of their most compelling songs, and talking about like the desire to experience everything you possibly can as a human, but even when you have, you still want more. And it's like this sort of cautionary tale of not becoming jaded to life, and appreciating what you have in front of you. I think it's a really compelling thematic arc that the song goes on. And yeah, I really like everything about this song. It's so great. The way everything the song does makes sense. Like, when the screams come in, they come in at a very natural time. They flow in and out really well, and the chorus is just so good. And I don't put much stock in the Grammys. I don't think anyone should. But it was sort of cool to see this song get nominated for a Grammy, and I hope it wins, even though I don't think it will.
All right, getting into the top 5s. This is potentially the strongest number 5 I've ever had. And that pretty much leans into everything after this. This was one of the hardest years to pick a top 5, probably since like 2018, I'd say, or maybe 2019 even. But my number 5 album is Fatalism by Polaris. Polaris is probably my like 3rd favorite active metal band currently. They have really impressed me recently. You know, their last album, The Death of Me, really took me by surprise. One of the most intense, exciting albums. This is like, you know, this is one of those bands from Australia that they're like, what do they have in the water in Australia that's like making all these Australian bands good? We miss you, Time the Evaluator. Even though I think they're German, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, this album really builds on what they established with The Death of Me and kind of ramps it up another notch. I wasn't sure initially if I liked this album more than The Death of Me, but after listening to it repetitively, I think I do. I think it's probably my favorite album by them now. Starts off with a really strong song called Harbinger, which I don't know why every song called Harbinger is good for some reason, but that's neither here nor there. Nightmare has a really nice, addicting chorus. I'm really glad the Unclean vocalist got to show off a little more in this album because I think he's really impressive. Parasite's just one of those insanely intense Polaris songs that has come to sort of be their staple. Just the absolute explosive guitar riffs and like fast-paced, almost like rapping the lyrics to a certain extent. And then it just sort of goes through some of their some of their more typical stuff. With Regards is kind of one of their more interesting songs that sort of takes a step back and a little bit softer, a little bit harder in spots. Then it hits you with a sucker punch with the ending song, All in Vain. Just like, yep, that's what the album is. So really, really strong album. I cannot really say enough about this band and what they've done for the scene. I just have been consistently impressed with how good they are and how much they've progressed over the years. So yeah, this is definitely a band that I think will be dominating the metal genre for a long time to come. My number 5 song is a band that got slapped into my recommended last week, and I have not stopped listening to them. This song is called From the Inside by a band called Orbit Culture. This is a Swedish metal band. They remind me of, you know, like one of those random bands that you just find waiting for a opening for a bigger band. But this song, the album I'll talk about a little bit later, but basically the album is a story about descending into hell. And this song talks about the sort of frozen layers, where the cold layers, really cool, really interesting lyricism, like dark trains on the rails of madness falling through the ice between the lively station no one leaves and no one ever left. The bolt of self-hate ignites the flame, and it all crashes down from the inside. And it's sort of like a self-reflective, you know, like getting into these cold areas, you realize that you yourself are cold, stuff like that. Even going into verse 2, the departure of the soul stuck in limbo. It's a very visual song. You can pretty much see everything they're talking about and see it sort of in motion in your head. This song is extremely powerful. And I cannot wait for you to listen to this band, because I think you are going to listen to this album and be surprised. I think you're going to want to listen to this album.
Yeah. I've heard the band name before, but I've never checked them out.
They're extremely small, but I don't know how they haven't gotten more from this one song. But yeah, that's my number 5 song.
Okay. My number 5 album is 45, Gent is Not a Genre. Yeah, I really liked this album a lot. I don't think it's as good as Periphery 4, but that was a tough act to follow, to be fair. That album just still blows my mind when I think about what they accomplished there. But I think this was a really good follow-up. I feel like this one to me feels like a direct sequel to Stand in a lot of ways. Like they're pushing forward what they were beginning on that album, and debatably they go even a little crazier on this one in terms of experimentation and whatnot. I do wish we had gotten a couple more like just moments that you don't expect, like the saxophone solo in Wildfire. I feel like they start with that, and it's such a high bar that it's hard to clear it after that. But I really love Wax Wings as well. Man, the ending of that song is chilling every time I think about it. Just the machines are taking me, and it keeps on building, and then Spencer, he's such a good vocalist, and it blows my mind there are still some people out there who don't think he's a good, clean singer. That's been something that's haunted him from the moment he's been from the first album, and I've never understood it. I think he is a great, clean vocalist.
Anyone who says Periphery would be better without his vocals, you're on crack cocaine.
No,
this guy's one of the best vocalists in metal.
Also, I'm glad you mentioned Dying Star, because I really liked that one. It was sort of cool to see Periphery go for a more like just straightforward radio rock song and put their own spin on it.
That was my favorite song from the album. I was surprised myself, but it was straight up my favorite from the album.
I really liked that one, and I mean, Zagreus is a lot of fun. That one's alluding to a video game, isn't it?
Yes, that has what riff does it have? I remember hearing it. I don't remember what riff it has.
It's some roguelite that it's a logo.
It's Hades. It's Hades.
Yeah, that's it.
Which is a great video game, by the way.
But I mean, that was a really ambitious one of the 2 lead singles. I mean, both lead singles were ambitious, and I really liked both of them. And yeah, I mean, I loved most everything about this album. Everything is fine. When a Periphery song has an exclamation point, you know you're in for something awesome. I really liked that one a lot. I mean, even Silhouette has sort of grown on me, even though that is my least favorite from the album still. That one has grown on me. And yeah, there's not really a song I dislike on here. The only one I don't care for is Draw Cool Grass, which goes on a little too long, maybe. But I mean, I think the album is really good, and I really appreciate what Periphery did on it. And I think they lived up to the album's name, like saying that Gent doesn't have to be in one restricted place. Like, it can be a lot of different things, and that's what Periphery's always been, very ambitious. Now, my number 5 is a total shift from that, and it is the only song in my top 5. Song. It's the only song in my top 5 that is not metalcore or metal adjacent, and that is "I Remember Everything" by Zach Bryan featuring Casey Musgraves. Now, it's sort of fitting that my favorite country song of the year features Casey Musgraves, who is the only other country artist to have made my top 10 in the past.
I remember.
And the fact that she's here is, I just think, sort of fitting and sort of cool. This was the song that actually became number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. First number 1 for Zach, and first number 1 for Casey by association. It was my favorite hit song of the year, and it also was one of my top 5 favorite songs of the year. That's happened with another hit song before. I like that happened again. But at its core, it is sort of a breakup song, but I think it's a lot deeper than that, because it's sort of these two who are reflecting on this toxic relationship that they had, and it is a very depressing song. I won't sugarcoat it. It's very sad, and it sort of hits you like a gut punch when they reveal that they're both, like, just relying on alcohol to forget it. Like, they've both become addicts, essentially, and trying to forget this relationship. And it's heartbreaking to listen to, and I like that both of them get to sort of give their side of the story, and their vocals sort of contradict each other really well. Like Zach Bryan, he sounds like very rough and ragged, whereas Casey's vocals are a lot more beautiful sounding, but their harmony is just really good. It really works well, in my opinion. It's a very simple sounding song. In the background, there's not a whole lot going on, but I think that helps to tell the story. So yeah, this was a huge surprise to me, because country is a genre that I just normally don't love, but I gained more respect for it this year, and Zach Bryan was one that I really helped me get into the genre a little more. And yeah, I really love this song.
Okay, number 4. I think this hasn't happened in a while, but my number 4 album and song is from the same artist. My number 4 album is War of Being by Tesseract. This band is like, if I could pinpoint a definition of the type of genre that I like, I think this band would almost fit exactly in. This band and Tool and Periphery and all those types of bands fit pretty much exactly into the specific genre that I really like. But this album is just so powerful. One of the better progressive metal bands that I've listened to. Opens with a really strong Natural Disaster. The song name is Natural Disaster. I really love the way this song progresses. Just sort of, this whole album is sort of, the name sort of gives it away. It's just a sort of a question mark of who we are as human beings, and the first one being Natural Disaster will make sense, and a lot of natural disasters, whether man-made or just naturally. Lots of other really good songs. One of them I'll be talking about very shortly. The title track, War of Being, is a really, really impressive. I think it's somewhere along like 10 or 11 minutes with just incredibly addicting guitar riff. And the music video is quite good because it's from a video game. It's kind of fun. And Sirens is a pretty solid cut. And then it ends with Sacrifice, which is a really strong ending song. Just overall, a really, really powerful progressive metal album. This band is obviously very storied. I had no idea about it before this album, but I've listened to at least 2 of their other albums. I've listened to Sonder, and I've listened to their other past album. I believe that's called One. No, Portals is the other one that I listened to. But yeah, this band has really impressed me, and I was like, I don't even know how I never found them before, because this is like literally my genre in a nutshell. My number 4 song, which is the only one that I don't think I talked about, is Legion. This song has some of the most powerful has probably my personal, even though I have songs above this one probably has my favorite vocal performance of any metal song I've ever listened to. This guy hits levels of like, I don't know, you'd call it like soprano almost. Like he just hits some insane notes in this song, all behind the sort of veil of a really nice, it definitely hits hard sometimes, but it also goes pretty soft sometimes. It's a really, really fun song. Like I said, I think the strength is just the vocal performance is just so freaking impressive in this song. It's the highlight of the album for sure for me.
At number 4, it's sort of cool that this band is in my top. It's sort of a band that I would consider to be from my early teenage years, and I've really liked them for a long time, and that is Project 86 with their album Omni. It's part 1 of a 2-part album. Unfortunately, this band has been around for a long time. Unfortunately, next year they are officially breaking up.
Yep.
I think I mean they have a great history. They have so many quality albums. So I think them hanging up the hat is fine. I think they have a great legacy that they can be very proud of, and they're ending off in a very strong way. The band, they've always been, I would more consider hardcore, but on this album, they go full-on metalcore, like the first time, like full-on screen vocals as opposed to the more shouted ones that they've always done, and they absolutely kill it on this album. They create a dystopian concept album that is very heavily inspired by 1984. Like, the inspirations are all over the place on this album, and unlike a lot of media that I think uses 1984 to fit their political whims, and they misinterpret what the novel says and stuff like that, I think Project 86 actually has literacy and knows how to talk about its stuff without making a statement one way or the other that is inaccurate, in my opinion. Even though none of the songs are making my top 10, there's so many good ones on here. 0 is greater than 1, obviously an ironic title, sort of like alluding to the 2 + 2 = 5 idea in 1984. Talking about the dangers of becoming a hive mind or all believing the same thing. The song Metatropolis, which was the lead single, is just a banger. Spoonwalker is really creative. There's so many good moments on this album, and in my opinion, this album is just sort of a culmination of their career, like just their talent. It's just such a great release, and I really loved everything it did. And I can't wait to see what the sort of grand finale to this album is, because this was a really special journey, and I just have a feeling part 2 is going to be even better. But yeah, I really enjoy this album a lot. And then at number 4, every year it seems that me and Joseph have like the uncanny ability to have the same song and the same number so many times. I also have Legion by Tesseract at number 4.
What do you know?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything he said. I mean, I really like the title track War of Being a lot for how technically impressive it is, but I think Legion is a much more interesting emotional journey. That's why I really like this one. And yeah, the notes that Daniel hits are just wild. Like, I don't know how it's humanly possible to hit some of those notes. And it's so good. I mean, it's a really good song about someone going on a journey to discover their humanity, sort of fitting into the concept of the whole album, the idea of being. I really like the lyrics, like, I don't want to feel this way, same as yesterday, please lead me home. It's very simple, but it brings the message across very effectively. And I like how it's just unpredictable, and it's Tesseract doing their progressive sound just really well. I don't know if I would say this is my favorite Tesseract album. I think I like Portals a little better, probably. But, I mean, this song is one of my favorites by them, I think.
Okay, getting into top 3 territory. I said I would be talking about this band very soon, and that is the case. This is Descent by Orbit Culture. This album, like I said, is a sort of concept album about a descent into hell. It starts off with a pretty calm track descending, goes in, and then it goes into Black Mountain, which I think is like a 7-minute just thrash metal, like just explosion. And then Sorrower and From the Inside, which are the 3rd and 4th tracks, were in a constant battle to be my favorite song from this album. Sorrower has a really strong, clean performance, and it has like a really nice emotional guitar riff section. This is like sort of the emotional part where it's like, why did I do this? How did I get here? Stuff like that. And then a really creative song called The Isle of Fire, spelled like an aisle in a grocery store, obviously indicating being in hell. A lot of fun, just like I've said it before, but their lyricism consistently, like you have to look up their lyrics to really enjoy this album fully, because they have a lot of really visual lyrics. Like this album is like a really great storytelling, wise as well, which, you know, you can't really say a lot about other bands, but this album is really great storytelling wise, and it tells a really, really powerful story, and it does it in a very impactful way, in my opinion. So this album, like I said, it just popped into my recommended last week, and it streaked into my top 10 pretty much, into my top 3 pretty much with no time. This is genuinely one of the most impressive I would call it thrash metal, maybe more like, I wouldn't call it harmonic or like, you know, orchestral, not quite orchestral, but it definitely hits into that genre if you enjoy that sort of thing. So really, really strong album. I cannot speak enough to that album. My number 3 song, I think this is the second album in a row that an opening song from this band has been my favorite one. This is Offworlder by Silent Planet.
I wouldn't have expected that to be your favorite.
The album starts, as every Silent Planet album does, with like a really nice sort of tone setting, very calm, thoughtful instrumentation sort of thing. This song, just like, I don't know, the beginning like 4 seconds, it's just like, you know, you are just getting into an absolute banger. And the music video to this song actually reveals that this song is essentially about someone who's getting hunted by people who are sort of off planet. Hence, then it's, you know, Silent Planet, they went quite literal with this album, I think, because a lot of their songs are very alien, in a sort of way. And I mean that because also they went very electronic, like Alien by Northlane did. But it just has this really cool, again, I've just like come to appreciate very visual lyricism. That was just Reconnaissance. The cavalry is next. Can you hear them shake the stairwell, weapons climbing up the steps until you cut the transmission? The madness never stops, and there will be no end of them until the signal drops. So it sort of gives this idea of like, this person is trying to escape from these off-worlders who are attacking them, and it just like gives this sort of visual to an objective that's happening in the song. And it's also, Garrett is just, I don't know, ever since I've listened to Silent Planet, I don't think I dislike a single album by them. Garrett is one of the most creative lyricists in this entire genre. I think he might be the best lyricist in this genre currently, aside from Jesse Cash. The way he just writes stories in his songs, the way he puts together the albums. It's just so impressive, and his unqueens are just so godly. I love the way he does his unqueens. Really great guitar work, and obviously this album I'll be talking about soon again, so that's all I'll kind of say for now.
Okay. My number 3 album is Tesseract's War of Being.
Here we go.
Yeah.
This usually happens where our top 3 start to become really similar.
Yeah, I was really impressed by this album. I discovered Tesseract for the first time this year as well. More of Being actually popped up in my YouTube recommended. YouTube has problems, but I'll give them credit that they usually do a good job with their recommended feed, like knowing what you'll like music-wise. Because, man, that song, when I heard that song, my jaw was on the floor with what it was doing. Such an impressive cut. Definitely my second favorite from the album. I mean, just what it does from a technical perspective is absolutely insane. One of the most interesting progressive metal songs I've ever heard. Just so many cool ideas going throughout it, and yeah, it's just a mind-blowing experience. If you haven't heard it, you need to check it out. I also really like Burden. I don't hear people talking about that one much, but I really like what that one does. It's one of the more deceptively simple on the album, but I find it to be really powerful and compelling. And then, of course, Legion is great. I think I agree. I like the opening track, Natural Disaster, as well. And Sirens is great, of course. Yeah, Sacrifice is an awesome ending track as well. I mean, this album is pretty near flawless to me. There's not many problems I have with it at all. And yeah, I think this band is just really talented at what they do. And I'm glad I discovered them this year, is all I'll say. Then at number 3 for me is Dissipate by Polaris.
Interesting.
Yeah. I liked so many songs on Polaris's album, and this one just sort of, as I listened to it more, this one snuck up on me. And I don't know, I think maybe the reason it hit me so much is because and a lot of the album contextually looks a little different after the passing of the lead guitarist. Like, I mean, the guitarist was around when the album came out, but everything contextually feels very different about the album. It's a lot more bittersweet to look at it, is what I'll say. And it hits harder. And I think Dissipate might be the song that hits the hardest for me just because of what it talks about. I mean, musically, this song just blows me away. The guitar riffs are so hard-hitting, and it's sort of weird to describe because it's like you want a headbang when the guitar riffs come, but the lyrics that come before the breakdown are so sad and devastating that the breakdown is also very sad in a weird way. And the chorus is so freaking good. It might be my favorite Polaris chorus. It is beautiful. I really love it. And it really contrasts well with the screams from Jamie, who, oh man, his screams are so good in this song. He does a really good job of doing different types of screams and stuff like that. And thematically, the song is so sad about like the desire to get away from the darker instincts we have, but seeing no way out of that, like feeling trapped. And the song's intensity reflects that trapped feeling, in my opinion. And I mean, it gives me chills every time at the end when Jamie screams out, "Tear the thorn that's in my side." It's such a sad, you can just feel the sadness in that lyric, and it works so well and leaves the song with a huge impact. I just love this song.
All right, my number 2 album is a band that I feel like has probably only ever not been in my top 10 albums once. And they are back in my top 10 once again. This is Super Bloom by Silent Planet. I said they would be there very soon, and I meant it. When this band hits, they just hit. I just love this band. I don't know. I just think their combination, especially since everything is sound, it's been a very long time since, that's like one of my favorite albums of all time. I still think it's better than this album, but man, this album just is so dang good. Like I said, I talk about Off-Worlder. Collider is a really nice cut. Dreamwalker is kind of one of those classic Silent Planet songs where it's just like hard metalcore from beginning to end. The second half of the album is where they really start to shift into their more experimental side. They kind of did this a little bit 2 albums ago with Iridescent, not Iridescent, When the End Began. But they really go into their experimental side with this album, especially with Antimatter, which is one of the more interesting metal songs in general that I have listened to.
That's my favorite on the album, personally.
Yeah, I really like this song. It has it's like, I don't know, you'd call it like party metal, disco metal, something or other. It has this really nice synth riff that's like I can't say synth riff. There we go, riff, not rift. That goes along with it. And it's pretty soft throughout the majority of the first half, and then it dives into this combination of synth and metal, and Garrett's performance in this one just always good. But I was just really impressed overall with the experimentation in this album. The Overgrowth is another classic Silent Planet album that actually reminds me a lot of their first album, and then the ending song Super Bloom. Again, just a really good closing song. This album is surprisingly short for being 12 songs, but all the 12 songs are really high quality from Silent Planet.
It was sort of ballsy for them to make Signal sort of the promotional track for the album, because that one is just so weird.
Yeah.
But it's
awesome. Everything is weird, but like I think Silent Planet just like, I think if they go with this experimental route more, I'm just gonna be like, just go full synth metal. I feel like they can really make an interesting genre out of it, because they've already shown they can do it.
Yeah, they found a good genre for them for sure. Okay.
I have to do my number 2 song, sir.
Oh, I thought you had.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, sir, I did not. My number 2 song is Ultraviolet by Spirit Box.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This year is one of the first years that I've really started to appreciate fully Queen vocal songs. This song is extremely powerful. Possibly one of my favorite vocal performances, maybe of all time. Has a really cool music video too, I'll just say that. And it just has one of Courtney's best vocal performances. It just has this really strong, like, it's this atmospheric song that just like, when you listen to it, you can just like sit back and just like be somewhere else. It's like just this really strong song. Like I said, very cool music video that I would strongly suggest listening to. It's sort of a song about dreams dying. It's sort of this kind of harsh song to listen to, but it's like, it just shows like, the song begins with why did I forget the name of the song that it begins with? Cellar Door. Cellar Door is just like this slap you in the face metal song, and then it ends with this really powerful atmospheric soft song. This just shows the continual impressive range of Spirit Box that I think is one of the reasons why they're just so popular, is because they can literally do everything. And Courtney's this band is like, I haven't listened to a lot of female-led bands. This is unquestionably one of the best metal bands that is active right now, and I'm hopeful they do another full album soon, because this EP, the full EP, The Fear of Fear, would have been a favorite of mine if it wasn't an EP. It was just so dang good.
Ultraviolet gave me Dayseeker vibes too. I really liked it for that reason.
I could see that. Yes, I could definitely see that actually.
Yeah. Okay. My number 2 album. When I first heard it, I didn't expect it to be so high, but this album really resonated with me a lot, and it's Polaris's Fatalism. This is undoubtedly my favorite Polaris. As much as I really do like The Death of Me, I think this album improves on it in every way. I really do. I think it hones in on their sound, and just has so many really good moments. Like, it takes the templates of metalcore and it does something so interesting with them. Like, if you look at it on paper, this seems like a sort of back to the basics metalcore album, but it's so much more than that, in my opinion, when you really just sort of keep peeling back the layers of it. I really like Harbinger, of course. I think that's a great opener track. It really sets the tone. Nightmare was a really good single, and I think it does a good job of setting like the themes for the album and like them talking about the state of the world and how it's affecting them mentally. It's a really good way to overarch the album, and I think it's one of the best choruses of the album. Parasites is a huge banger. Overflow is another really great single. I really liked what this one did, and
Addicting AF chorus.
yeah,
of course.
I think this one it's understandable why this one is a fan favorite. It really worked in what it did. With regards, this one was originally one of my least favorites, but it came back around to being one of my top favorites because it's one of the most bittersweet on the album because it's written from some perspective of someone who has lost their friend and they're like thinking about this loss and wishing they were still around. And like I said, while Ryan was around while this album happened, this song looks so much more bittersweet in the context afterwards. And I like the sort of pop punky vibe that it has. I think it works really well for Polaris. And yeah, it's just a really good song, and I love the ending of the song where there's sort of a key change and they go a little higher. Inhumane is a huge banger, so much fun. I mean, the ending of this album is freaking flawless. Aftertouch, the run from Dissipate to All in Vain is wild. Just what they do there. Fault Line is so ambitious and has a really cool arc that it goes through. And Aftertouch, I mean, I could rave about this album for a long time because there's just so much good that it does. But I've liked Polaris in the past, but now I sort of love them. Like this album, I would say I was buying into them, but now I think I'm more of a certified fan, in my opinion. This album really sold me on them a lot.
Okay.
Number two song.
Oh yeah,
You
I did
forgot
it too.
too.
I may or may not have done that on purpose. Figure it out yourself.
My number two song is Wildfire by Periphery.
There it is.
While I still like Garden in the Bones better, and I don't think any song is going to beat Garden in the Bones for me for my favorite Periphery song.
That's your favorite Periphery song?
Yes, without a doubt.
Surprise.
But this one is so good. When I first heard this song, it was sort of a classic Periphery reaction where you're like, I don't know what I just heard, but I sort of love it. And then the more I heard it, the more I was like, yeah, it's just such a good Periphery song, and it is classic Periphery. It combines everything about their earlier albums and their later albums, in my opinion, and it does a really good job with it. The guitar riff really reminded me of Blood Eagle right away. Somehow even more unhinged than Blood Eagle, which seemed impossible to do. But Spencer Screams, I mean, I immediately felt nostalgic when I heard them because they sounded like something that you would hear on one of the Juggernaut albums, which are both underrated Periphery albums, by the way.
Stranger Things is Periphery's best song. You heard it here.
I do love that. And what's really cool about this song is that everything sounds so disorganized at first, but then the chorus comes in, and when Spencer sings out "I'm burning like wildfire," it suddenly all ties together and makes sense what they were building up to. And after that, you're just in for the ride, no matter where it's taking you. And yeah, there's like several breakdowns in here that are just so freaking insane. And I just love every single one of them. And then there's the saxophone solo, which one of my favorite tropes in any genre is when a saxophone just comes in and takes center stage. And this might be one of my favorite versions of that ever. It works so well. And Periphery dedicates full on to the jazz genre as well, which they've done before. They have done like jazz before.
The way that Periphery does with every album, it happened in Hell Below where they just slap you in the face for 3 minutes and then do elevator music, and then in this case it goes into saxophone.
Yes. What's even more wild is that they go jazz and then they go back into the chorus like nothing happened.
It just slaps you with that riff. Oh, that riff.
Yes, it's so good.
Oh, that riff.
And the sort of orchestral outros just sort of cherry on top. I mean, this is a perfect song for Periphery, and just sort of a representation of
I think I have a suspicion our number one album is going to be the same.
Oh yeah.
This band again came out of nowhere. But my number one album of 2023 is Heavener by Invent Animate. Listen.
We can talk about this one together.
Yeah.
That's my number one album.
Listen. This might be my second strongest number one album of all time after Time the Evaluator. Godspeed. There's just simply not enough time or space or words to adequately describe what this album is, other than just simple masterpiece. Literally, from beginning to end, every song is actual perfection. And they didn't even release the title track until like a month ago. And the title track is god tier.
Why didn't you release the title track? The album is my
I feel like that track would have been a great closer. Not to say Elysium is a bad song by any means, but
it is a fitting epilogue to the album.
Yeah,
as well,
it is a nice. Yes. Just every Shade Astray being the first single was like you're just like setting unrealistic expectations, and then every song after that is just better and better and better. Without a Whisper, I think, but I don't know. I won't say anything. Without a Whisper is an excellent metal track. Unqueen vocals. Queen vocals out the roof. This guy is so good at clean vocals, it's insane. The passion and the energy he puts into his vocals is insane. And like the riffs, this just kind of feels like one of those metal albums that just comes up and it's just like, this one is going to be in the archives of greatest metal of all time for a very long time. Reverie, a really nice middle track to sort of separate into the last part. Immolation of Night, one of their singles, a really hard-hitting track. Ember Glow was really beautiful, very emotional, and then it closes off with Elysium. Again, a great closing track, but Heavener, the title track, would have been a way better closer, but again, it's a good epilogue. I have to mention Heavener because I think it's part of the album technically still, in my opinion, and it's an excellent closer. And my gosh, I don't have enough to say about this album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think what this band does so well is combining intensity and atmosphere so well. Like, there's moments on here that are just absolute destruction, but they manage to balance it so well with these moments of beauty that are just sort of incredible to hear. Like, Heavener is sort of the perfect name for this album because it's sort of thematically about the idea of trying to find a sense of heaven in a very flawed world, and they explore that theme so well throughout. I mean, Absence Persistent is the perfect way to begin the album with that idea. False Meridian is just a wild track. The fact that it's not my favorite is like just shows the strengths of this album, because this one, I think False Meridian is sort of the definition of what this album does right in a lot of ways. Like, there's a part where it just has this intense breakdown that is so crazy, but there's beautiful cleans on top of it, and it works so freaking well. Reverie, I legitimately teared up the first time I heard Reverie. It is so gorgeous. Like, it's wild how beautiful it is. And then it's just so wild they come with Immolation of Night right after that, which is just a punch. And one of my top three, False Meridian and Immolation of Night, are both within my top three. By the way, the music video reminds me of an A24 movie. It's so good.
A lot of their music videos do.
I really liked Emberglow as well. I almost wish that one had been the closer. That one felt more like an appropriate closer to me than Elysium in ways. But I that's not to say anything against Elysium, because I think Elysium is a great closer. And then just Heavener coming out later is just sort of like, it's just sort of unfair, because it's like a song they didn't even include on the album proper is still one of the best songs of this year. Like, it was so good.
That one was very close to being my number one song. If it hadn't been for my actual number one song from the album, which is also my favorite song of the year, Void Surfacing. This one, it's definitely one of the harder, more metal, hard, unqueened vocals on the album. It has these pretty brutal lyrics. This is one of the songs that sort of takes the darker side of the tone of the album, sort of talking about what people do to sort of get on the good side of things to a certain extent. The lyrics that sort of confirm this are: ruthless acts in the black to go back to the garden. We're assuming this means the Garden of Eden, probably, and therefore trying to get to whatever heaven you're trying to get to. That's all it ever was, a selfish bargain. Just really strong, really gut-punchy lyricism from this song. Again, I cannot say enough about the unqueen vocals, the queen vocals. All of it just meshes together so well. This album, this song's quality is just, this might be my strongest song of the year. I think this will be one of my most played songs of all time. By when it's all said and done, this song is going to stay in my the album as a whole is going to stay in my rotation all the time. I just love this song and what it talks about, and the instrumentation. I gotta give props to the drummer too. You know, I don't think drums in general are really appreciated very much in metal, and it just, the way everything incorporates into the atmosphere of these songs, like James said, it's a very strong incorporation of everything.
Yeah, and my number one is Without a Whisper. Oh, this song, it hits so hard. It is so... This band talks about the loss of a loved one in possibly one of the best ways I've heard any band talk about this theme. Like, it's been tackled so many times, and I think this band nails it. Like, nails the feelings you have when you lose a loved one. And even though they did release the title track afterwards, while I listened to the album, I consider this one to be the sort of unofficial title track, because, I mean, they even say heaven in the song. And, I mean, this song is at the very center of the album's themes. And there's so many good lyrical moments in this, and if you didn't know, this song is about the guitarist's loss of his grandmother, and it just feels deeply personal in that way. And, I mean, lyrics like, "Are you going away to the place we used to dream of? Radiance and grace, the only warmth I knew." It absolutely nails the feeling. And it's interesting because the song is trying to find a sense of heaven in the midst of loss. And it doesn't really define what the heaven is, because they don't know how to define it, which is just so honest. Like, you know, they treat it with how it needed to be treated, in my opinion. And the final iteration of the chorus where he hits that high note, it is so freaking good. And yeah, I think this one, I just love the atmosphere of it. It just sounds so good. Yeah, it's just one of those things you have to hear for yourself, in my opinion.
Yes, the whole album.
Yeah, the whole album.
All right, there we go, folks. That is your top 10 albums and songs of the year. Another great year for music in the books, for sure. And that'll be the end of this video. Obviously, the next one, I'm not sure how I'll release these, but either either this one will be the one that you see last, or the top 10 movies will be the next one you see. Whichever one is the case, thank you all so much for listening and watching. Hope you all enjoyed this one. Let us know what your favorites of 2023 were. Appreciate you all. Hope you all have a good one, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.
Peace.